if I had a DeLorean and I can go back to any point in wrestling history, I may actually pick 1983 and stand next to Stan Hansen while he watches Roughhouse Fargo in the ring, which caused him to go, what is this shit? I'm going to kill Austin Idol tonight.
Oh, crap. Yeah, he wasn't even in the same match and he was mad. It was just, it was what it was, ladies and gentlemen. But I'll tell you what, I would say that probably more people paid to see Roughhouse Fargo in the Tennessee territory between the late 50s and the early 70s than any probably current professional wrestler today, maybe many of them on the WWE roster. Because of when you had Chattanooga drawing 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 people a week, and Memphis for the big shows with Roughhouse did 10,000 people, and Nashville did 3,000 or 4,000 people a week, and Birmingham when it was hot doing 5,000 or 6,000 people a week, et cetera, over and over for those years. More people in those days knew who Roughhouse Fargo was and knew who John Cena was. Just in that area, it's just the way it was.
It is such a great gimmick. The idea that here's Jackie Fargo, the biggest star in the territory. We know he has a brother, Don Fargo, who's tough. This guy's really tough. If you're in the locker room and you see him with a hammer and a nail, you know how tough he is.
Yeah. Putting it through his dick.
Yeah. And then he has another brother who all we know is he's in the nut house. I'm not trying to say that as disparaging to nut houses, but that's what they called it because they also called him Nut House Fargo.
Well, they mentioned, Jackie covered that because the heels kept saying that Roughhouse was a mentally unstable lunatic that Jackie would check out of the nut house from time to time when he needed help. But Jackie would clarify it by saying that he was not an inmate. He just worked there and swept up. So it was easy for him to get in and out. But,
And then he worked like it, though. It was the perfect work for someone who just got busted out of the nut house. He would punch his partner, the referee, everyone. He would just run crazy. He would do crazy things. I actually love Roughhouse Fargo from the limited footage I've seen of him. And was he in the studio much when he did come back?
Almost never.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Almost never on TV. But he was advertised. You had to pay to see him at the matches that night, that Monday night or that Tuesday night or whatever. And, and he would only come in a few times a year, especially at holiday times. And actually, I did an article recently and noted that Roughhouse Fargo in 1982, when he was in his late 50s, drew a bigger house to the Louisville Gardens than the previous appearances by Nick Bockwinkel, Jack Briscoe,
wow,
Terry Funk, and a number of other giant names. But they put Roughhouse on the case. It's the first time he'd been in Louisville in like 5 or 6 years at that point, and it was pretty much a sellout.
I love that. I love the fact that people sat at home. They're like, "We got to go. Shit's gonna happen."
Yeah, no, we can't miss. It's Roughhouse Fargo. We can't miss this because he made Memphis more than he made anything else. But when he came to Louisville on those spare occasions in 1975, they have the Fargo reunion: Jackie, Don, and Roughhouse against Chris Colt, Billy Colt, Bill Anderson, and Bill Dundee. Roughhouse comes out and the place is packed and he's raving crazy and he's running the heels around the ring, and then he sits in the front row in some woman's seat and eats the guy's popcorn. And then he grabs the fucking hot dog and he goes in and he nails the goddamn heel with it. He shoves the hot dog down the heel's throat. Then he hits somebody else with a chair. Then he runs to the back and climbs up the stage and starts running the TV camera like he's running an old-fashioned silent movie camera. And the heels try to come at him and he fucking takes their shoes off and beats them over the head with it. It was insane. And everybody just flew for him and he sold nothing. And all his shit was stiff and hurt. Oh my God. He headbutted me one time. I saw stars and sparkly things. And you just had some bumping heels off these legends and it worked. But that's when people just went to a show to enjoy it instead of pick it apart.
How was he introduced? One last question. From when Fargo first got there, when did they first bring Roughhouse in and how was he introduced? Do you know?
Well, see, what's lost to time is that Jackie and Don from 57 to, 59 or 60 would come in and out of Tennessee. They were the World Tag Team Champions. They appeared not only in the Tennessee territory, but also they worked for Jack Pfeffer. He was their manager for a while, obviously. Yeah. They worked in Madison Square Garden. Jackie Fargo was at one point in the early 60s the world champion out of Chicago, which a lot of people forget because there was a downtime for business, to be honest, when Fred Kohler was about to sell out.
Because of Pfeffer. Pfeffer destroyed Chicago.
Well, yeah, Pfeffer destroyed everything. But so Jackie and Don were the team for the first 3 or 4 years, and then because Roughhouse was really Jackie's brother, when Don would go off and do another gimmick or whatever, they would bring in Sonny Fargo, and they were heels. And Sonny at that time was an obnoxious, simpering, little brother. But then his full-time job was refereeing for Jim Crockett Promotions after he quit wrestling pretty much in the mid-'60s. But after a period of being away for a few years, they came up with, when Jackie was a babyface by now, they came up with Roughhouse. And at first he was Sonny Roughhouse Fargo, and then finally just Roughhouse Fargo. And it kind of evolved that way to where it got over so strong that people forgot that just 7 or 8 years earlier, Roughhouse was Sonny and he wasn't that crazy. The old memory of that was erased. And from then on, Roughhouse Fargo, they actually printed a picture. And this hurt the business a little bit in Tennessee, because they actually printed a picture of referee Sonny Fargo in the Carolinas refereeing a match in one of the magazines. And for the people in the Tennessee territory, they've had the little sly caption, referee Sonny Fargo admonishes so-and-so over Roughhouse tactics. Well, fuck, I remember the talk when that magazine hit and people saw that picture. It was like, oh, my God, Roughhouse is a referee? That kid. Oh, my God, he's not real. And for some fans, that fucking buried the whole goddamn deal, that they would see a picture of Roughhouse not in the lunatic asylum and actually being normal. So that he was careful not to put too many pictures in the magazines because it'd kill his second career in Tennessee. Jerry Jarrett said that he, per capita, of any wrestler that he ever booked, Jerry Lawler, Jackie Fargo, any of the champions, any of the Bill Dundee, Austin Idol, Jimmy Valiant, Roughhouse Fargo was the biggest draw because he didn't have to work in the territory regularly. You brought him in for 2 or 3 big weeks in the summer or at the holidays, and most of the time the building would sell out. So per capita, the biggest draw in history of the Tennessee territory was Roughhouse Fargo.